Welcome back to Broncos Beat. Guys, we've talked about the offensive line and running back groups as two that have been a part of this big offseason overhaul. But now let's shift our focus to the wide receiver room. Leggy, you noted that Courtland Sutton, Deontay Spencer, Deshaun Hamilton, and Tim Patrick combined for just 10 receptions and 131 yards in that final game of 2019. But in 2020, that group will include Jeudy and KJ Hamler. What is the biggest difference between last year's room and this year's room?
Speed, probably. Suddenly you go from a group that in the league is considered sort of middle of the road in terms of speed and athleticism. You know, everybody in the league loves Courtland Sutton for good reason. But the Broncos really didn't have the traditional tear the top off guy on defense, or on offense rather, and suddenly they have two. I mean, Hamler may have been the fastest player in the draft. We don't know because he didn't run the 40 at the combine. But these are two of the fastest receivers in the best receiver draft I can remember in the 30 or so I've done. So that's a big change. You've gone to athleticism, speed, and just playmaking as the top item they have, and they probably didn't have that as a group last year.
Well, it's not just the speed for me. That's the main asset, as Leggy points out, but there's an element of danger now to this wide receiver room that simply wasn't there last year. You know, even with Emmanuel Sanders before the trade, like, you have the element of danger, so defenses don't really know what you're going to do because you have guys that can go past the defense. You have multiple players that can take the top off the defense, and you can use them in multiple different ways. And as we talked about, Melvin Gordon perhaps, shifting out, playing slot or something like that, it's all about declaration in the NFL. How do you make a defense declare when you have all this speed, when you have the element of danger? Now a defense doesn't really know what to declare because you have so many multiple receivers that can get by them quickly.
I look at it from a little bit different angle to where I know both of these guys are unbelievably talented in terms of rookie receivers. This is a different offseason, though, and them to make immediate impact is getting hindered a little bit because of the way this offseason's going. So I'm going to look at it that the biggest difference is Courtland Sutton got an opportunity to see what it's like to be a number one receiver. Once Emmanuel Sanders was traded, the back half of the season, he got to experience what that world is like. That's still going to be his world in this season. And now that he has some experience in it, I think that helps dramatically. He'll get some help because you just can't ignore the speed. You can't ignore what the other guys can do. But I think him getting that experience of being the guy and constantly doubled, I think was just a monumental thing for his growth. As Leggy said, everybody thinks the world of him around the league. I think that stretch of games is going to do wonders for him as he goes into this season.
Big thinker, James Palmer. That's why we have you on the show,
I like
man.
that you sound so surprised. That's
I know, seriously. So shocked
Yeah.
You said something so intelligent.
Yeah.
No, that
Not
was
just
really
a
awesome.
pretty face, everyone. Not just a pretty face.
You guys, with
All right, let's get rolling here.
Yeah, we're going to keep rolling. With Jeudy and KJ Hamler added to this receivers room, now there's just a plethora of talent, but there's still only one football. How does Drew Lock choose between these three guys?
Well, I always go back to the old adage, choose the open guy.
Obviously.
Yeah, well, I mean, just this notion you got to force feed, and that gets lost, I think, these days because fantasy football is such a big entry point into the game right now. It's where a lot of people identify with how they look at football, and that's really cool, but it does sort of blur the line of getting guys touches. I think Peyton Manning would always talk, you're talking Peyton Manning had an offense where he had Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison for years, and he constantly just essentially said, get open, that's who gets the ball. So if you're the quarterback, that's got to be your message every day. And as a young quarterback, Drew Lock can be forceful with that because, frankly, he's got more experience than a lot of the receiver room now, too. So that's up to him to set that table of you get open, you'll get the ball, you let me worry about when it arrives.
When you talk to some of the best scouting minds in the NFL, as Leggy does, as James does, as I do, you're told that quarterbacks are supposed to isolate and eliminate. So the best do it before the snap. they can isolate what the defense is doing, and they can eliminate the guys that are already covered. So as everyone's saying here, go to the open guy. That's what will happen between Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. And I think that sort of friendly competition is nothing but good news for Drew Lock, Denver Broncos, and Broncos fans, because with that speed and with the creative offense that we know Pat Shurmur's going to bring to the mix, it would allow Lock to immediately isolate and eliminate. It's very hard to say, isolate and eliminate before the snap.
That's why it's so huge for what he does pre-snap and how he goes through his progressions. I don't really want to talk about another team, but this reminds me of a piece, shameless plug, I wrote for NFL.com, what's going on down in Houston. That was a team, like Leggy said, you force feed one guy repeatedly over and over again. Their philosophy now is spread the football around, go with a bunch of B-plus receivers and veterans they brought in like Randall Cobb and Brandon Cooks and Wolfie. They're going to spread around. The point I made in the piece is it falls on the quarterback to throw the ball to whoever's open. And that's going to be up to Deshaun Watson down there and Drew Lock here. And I think the other part of it is you better run your route correctly. And you better be where he wants you to be, because when that starts happening, he has other places he can go with the football. If you start making the mistakes within your route and you're not running in the precision that you're supposed to be doing, he has other options. I think it all is going to fall down on how Drew Lock goes through it, because, like he's right, whoever gets open should get the football. But with a young quarterback, we're going to have to make sure then Pat Shurmur finds a way to make that happen.
It's on Drew. This is a big part of his development, is every time those guys run back to the huddle and say the post is open, which they all do every down in history, you have to tell them, shut up, I'll get you the ball when I'm ready.
All right, before we go, really quick, we talked about Sutton, Jeudy, Hamler. What does the rest of this room shape up as?
For me, I'm most excited about Tim Patrick, because when I look at tools, right? I'm a toolsy guy. I want to find those guys that have size, speed combinations like Tim Patrick. Other players that excite me are Juwan Winfrey, interested to see if there's anything there with that kid they got from CU last year. But Patrick, to me, if he can stay healthy, can be a fine number 4 receiver who I don't think we've seen the best from yet because of lack of opportunity. Of course, won't get much opportunity this year if everybody's healthy, but Patrick's the guy that intrigues me most.